that we wanted to highlight Islamophobia. Islamophobia has grown. I spent my early days playing professional cricket in England, traveling the world. I went to university in England, and I saw three distinct watersheds when this Islamophobia kept growing. Number one was the Iranian Revolution. Iranian Revolution spread fear in the Western world that the entire Muslim world will be taken over by an Islamic revolution, which will be anti the West. So that was the first time in the Western countries this fear of Islam started. And this idea that this revolution will go against the Western interests. So that was number one. Then came 1989. An awful character called Salman Rushdie wrote a book which was blasphemous, called Satanic Verses. That became the second watershed, because the reaction in the Muslim world to the book could not be understood by people in the West, because they needed to understand why were the Muslims reacting to this blasphemy against our Prophet. I consider that the biggest failure of the Muslim world, the Muslim leadership, because it was up to the Muslim leadership to explain to the Western people, why did it matter to us so much? We needed to explain to them that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, lives in our hearts. Why do we love him so much? Why do we respect him so much? We needed to explain to people. In the Western countries, specifically in Europe, religion is not taken the way we Muslims live our religion. There were comedy programs about their religious figures. When I first went to England, I was shocked. They have a completely different attitude. So we needed to explain to them, why was this causing us so much pain? We failed. And from then onwards, in the West, this idea came that Islam is an intolerant religion, it's against the Western values, and so on, and so the Islamophobia started increasing from then. Then came 9/11. Now 9/11 was simply so many criminals, 15 or 16 or however they were, criminals conducting a terrorist act. The big disaster for the Muslim world was that when the Western leaders started calling it Islamic terrorism, we should have all objected. What had their act, their terrorist act, what had that got to do with Islam? There was no connection between Islam and those terrorist acts. And from there onwards, because we did not question them, because our Muslim leadership, rather than saying that Islam had nothing to do with it, delinking Islam with terrorism, and especially suicide bombing, suicide attacks, unfortunately the Muslim world started also using the Western terminology, moderate Islam and radical Islam. And that, I'm afraid, the thing that happened to Muslims all over, especially Muslims living in Western countries. Because how was the common man in the street, how was he going to distinguish between a moderate Muslim and a radical Muslim? So all Muslims became, for them, terrorists or radicals. So Islamophobia started growing even more. And because we the Muslim countries did not stop and question this, that terrorism and religion have no linkage. Suicide attacks would then also link to Islam, because a suicide attacker, when he blew himself up, he was supposed to go to heavens. So this connection meant that Muslims were more prone to suicide attacks. This completely went against historical facts. Japanese kamikaze pilots at the end of Second World War did suicide attacks. No one blamed their religion. Tamil tigers, in fact, before 9/11, majority of suicide attacks were by Hindu Tamil tigers. Quite rightly, no one blamed religion for that. But Islam and terrorism got connected. And the result was that you had so many instances of Muslims being terrorized in Western countries, Muslims being insulted. Even worse, like that guy in New Zealand who walks into a mosque and shoots 50 worshippers because he couldn't tell what was the difference between a normal Muslim and a terrorist or a radical Muslim. So this was the big disservice we did to Islam. Again, I blame the failure to the leadership of the Muslim world. And that's why when I spoke to Prime Minister Mahathir in New York during the United Nations General Assembly, and I spoke to President Erdogan, the idea was that we would meet here and we would highlight this and form some sort of a media that actually corrects these misunderstandings about Islam, some deliberately done by those who want to demonize Islam, but most of the time because of ignorance. And also educate our own young people, because of the mobile phone, our children now have access to information. Never in human history children ever had access to such information. So there was a need to give the children alternate information about the history of Islam, or give them an alternate point of view, because the world is moving in a direction, and with these new technologies like artificial intelligence and big data and all this coming in, it is very important that we develop a narrative, at least give our younger generation, Muslims, at least give them an idea of what was the origin, what are the misconceptions, what is real Islam. Because that way we will strengthen them. Neither will they fall into propaganda which is blatantly biased against Islam, nor will they go towards the extremes. Because there's an extremist propaganda which is luring our younger people towards extremist ideologies. So that was the idea behind, and we are still pursuing it. We hope to come up with a media which gives our children understanding, and of course, and the non-Muslims, that really what is real Islam, rather than those people defining Islam who have no idea or who have a bias. So, that's it.